Hey everyone, and welcome to the first of my monthly question and answer walk and talks at Melliodora, the permaculture property where I live. Melliodora is probably the most well-known permaculture property in the world because it's where David Holmgren lives. He's the co-originator of the permaculture concept. He and his partner Sue Dennett bought this property in 1986, the year I was born, and it's 1 hectare, 2.2 acres, with 130 fruit and nut trees, 5 annual garden beds, 3 houses, 3 goats, a bunch of chickens, geese who live in the orchard, and loads of plants. It also backs onto a gully system that we actively manage and restore. So I've got a few questions that you have asked today. One of them is, what's it like living in community? So here at Melliodora, David and Sue live in the big house with any interns or woofers or volunteers that they have. Currently our intern is Jasper from Western Australia. And in the medium house live Amy, who's my age, and her partner Fernando. And that's where Milkwood Permaculture used to live, if you've heard of those guys. And in the tiny house I live with my partner Charlie. And we have family dinners once a week where we catch up. Communication is really important in community living. If you've ever lived in a share house and you know how problems can get out of hand, people can get mad over cups left in the sink or other tiny things like that. So we're really conscious here at Melliodora to have fun together and also to talk about little things before they become big things. Living in community is one of my favourite things about this place because if you're sick, there's always someone to check on you. If you go away, when you come back, you know there'll be a fresh loaf of bread, some eggs, some milk waiting for you. And we work together every Wednesday on the farm to grow food and maintain this place. So it feels really good that I don't have to do all of that stuff myself. So the next question I was asked is, where did I do my PDC? So a PDC stands for Permaculture Design Course. It's a way of getting permaculture out there that was designed and I guess promoted by Bill Mollison back in the 90s. And it normally takes the form of a 72-hour plus course. So sometimes that's a 2-week residential course where you live on site at a property like this one and with a bunch of other people and do classes all day. And sometimes it takes the form of a more kind of part-time course, maybe once a week or a weekend or 4-day blocks a few times a year. It's a fantastic life-changing experience for almost everybody who has a part of it. So you learn things like growing fruit trees, annual vegetables, but also things like nurturing soil, reading the landscape, how water flows through a landscape, the permaculture principles and ethics, non-monetary economy, alternative economics, community governance. So I took my PDC over in Chile. I was living in South America for a few years and learning about permaculture when I was a volunteer. And the people that I had met over there were really vibrant and exciting and doing loads of fun stuff, and they went to Chile to study their PDC, so I went with them and took the course in Spanish. And I didn't pay for the course because I didn't have much money at the time, but instead the people running the PDC, El Manzano Eco Escuela with Griffin Hope, were kind enough to let my friends and I run a permaculture course afterwards to pay for our PDC. So we focused on natural construction and I guess community living and food preparation and permaculture. So that was a really fun chapter. I'm really grateful to Griffin for facilitating that non-monetary exchange. The final question that you've asked today is, what do we have growing in our garden? So I'm sitting here in the red soil garden. It's one of 5 annual vegetable gardens here at Melliodora. And we call it the red soil garden because here in central Victoria there's like a mosaic of different soil types, and the most fertile of the soil types is red volcanic soil, and we have a patch of it here, which is why our garden's here, and the rest of the property mostly is made up of a less fertile sandstone. And you'll see this pattern all through Central Vic, where you see the fruit trees and the veggies growing. That's normally where the good soil is, and where there's eucalypt forest, it's normally where the sandstone soil is. So here we grow a whole bunch of things. This year we've brought in a new system with polytunnels, so that involved getting really tough heavy duty plastic and setting up these hoops, and it means we can extend our growing season. We get frost here in Daylesford up until November, occasionally up until December. So if we have our little zucchini plants in the ground, they won't do well. The problem is if we plant them after the frost, by the time the frosts start up again in March or April, there's not enough time for things to grow. So polytunnels are our answer to this, and it means that hopefully we can get some capsicum and eggplant this autumn, and it also means that our zucchinis went in the ground in late September and we've been eating zucchinis all through November for the first time. So it's been really exciting. We normally don't buy new, and we definitely try not to use plastic, but we did buy plastic for this purpose, and we're going to take great care of it, keep it out of the sun now that it's done its job, and hopefully it will last for 10 years or so. We're also growing a broad bean forest. We had some very enthusiastic helpers that planted a lot of broad beans, and they've been growing here for the past few months since winter, and now they're almost ready to harvest. When they start falling down like this is what we want. We'll pick all the pods, put them out to dry, and then store the dried beans to eat during the winter months. In this garden we also have some perennials, so these are things that you plant once and don't need to plant again, like blackberries. We've also got fruit trees. These nectarines and peaches just came up in the compost and we let them. There are also fig and citrus trees here, which were planted originally before this garden was here. There are other gardens on the property, and this was actually a sort of a wind tunnel. So these trees were planted as an edible windbreak, and because they were such great trees, we've kept them here even though now it's a vegetable patch. So they don't compete much with light, but we do have to cut a trench around them once a year to sever the roots at an appropriate distance so that the tree's still healthy, but so that the roots aren't going straight into our veggie beds and taking all the nutrients and water from our vegetables. We're growing corn, beans, we're growing 3 beds of potatoes because there are quite a few of us, 7 now, and we want to have enough potatoes to get through the winter. There are other veggie beds growing other things here, like most of our tomatoes, more pumpkins, more potatoes, but here lots of potatoes have snuck in. We've also got our carrot crop here, which we will grow and then leave in the ground until winter time when there are less veggies around, and they kind of go into cold storage. It's kind of like keeping them in a fridge, only they last even longer. So we'll be eating these into the autumn and winter months. We've also got a whole bunch of beautiful poppies, which we grow for poppy seed, which we use in cakes, baking, on bread, and in granola and muesli. So the other fun thing is the edible weeds. This is purslane, which has just come up, and that's my favourite. We've also got oxalis, chickweed, and we selectively weed out the weeds that aren't edible and leave the ones that are to act as a bit of a ground cover. So purslane months are my favourite. This makes up my lunch every day. Thanks everybody for sending in your questions. If you've got other questions you'd like to know about me, my work, or about Melliodora, please send them in. I'd love to hear them, and I look forward to chatting with you next month.